Hello, welcome to our video class for this week. Today, I'm going to be discussing about what you need to include when you develop your research problem. The information that I'm going to be presenting in this video, it's going to be fundamental for you in order to work in your first draft about your research problem. So let's start and see what is this about. I have shown this before in this graphic that shows you the different steps of the research process. When we talk about the research problem, we are here in the first step of this journey. When we talk about identifying a research problem, basically here they tell us at least three things that we will be discussing and trying to develop. First, very important, to specify a problem. Second, we need to justify the importance of that problem in relation with the context that we are proposing our own research. And finally, the idea is that you include some arguments that justify the need to study for the audience that you are going to be in, or the audience is going to be involved in your study. So this is the first step that we are going to include in your research. That's going to be a part of your thesis, maybe a chapter. Okay, and with that, we are going to continue with all these 8 steps, but each one is going to represent a part of your research proposal and then your thesis. Okay, next week, we're going to skip the step number 2, and then we're going to discuss about how to specify a research purpose. Okay, part of the identifying the research problem is going to be related also with reviewing the literature. So these two are very connected. Okay, so that with the reviewed literature, you're going to be also using the different sources that are going to be important and used for the research problem. So let's continue and see what is the first part is about. Here's a similar graphic than the one that I showed you before. Here we have the different steps of the research process, but here we have a very general explanation considering some differences that we may consider when we talk about a quantitative approach or a qualitative approach. We saw that in last class, and we're going to see that many types or many parts of the research process, there's a couple of distinctions that we need to consider depending on which approach are we going to use for our research. So here we have, and we're going to see this many times during this course, okay? And here are the next step of the research process. But today, we are going to center the discussion in the research problem, okay? And what is the difference between a research problem from a quantitative and qualitative perspective? When we think in quantitative research, the research problem used to be a call for an explanation, and we are trying to measure trends, okay? That's very related with the quantitative type of research. When we think about a research problem from a qualitative type of research, we think that the research problem calls for an exploration or developing the description or understanding of the issue that we're concerned about. Okay, so basically here, maybe the main objective is the distinction between these two approaches. Now, the statement of the problem usually is going to be presented, and if we think in a research paper, this is going to be at the beginning of the report. In your thesis, problem is going to be the first chapter of your work, okay? And here we justify why the research study is needed, okay? In a research paper, usually that's going to be located in the opening paragraphs, like the sometimes it is under the introduction title or statement of the problem or the research problem. But usually it was going to take 3 to 5 paragraphs at the beginning of that report. Something similar is what we're going to be doing in your first draft of your research proposal. And the objective of this class is to explain you the specific information that you will have to develop in order to present in a good manner the research problem that you are going to be identifying. This passage attempts to generate the interest in the study, articulate the importance of the study, argue for the need of the study, and suggest why the study is going to be significant to others. To identify the research problem, you usually need to think in the issue, controversy, or main concern that it's going to guide the need of the study. So I think this is a really good general definition of what is the research problem meaning, okay? And think about these 3 words: the issue, controversy, or concern that's going to guide the study. We're going to see some examples of this. For example, the disruption to people's life caused by natural disasters. Okay? The increase of violence in college campuses. So you see, we can identify, if we read these sentences, we can identify those with an issue, controversy, or concern. The controversy about the positive and negative roles of high stakes testing. Low attendance rate at school with vulnerable students population. The research problem usually is in the first or second paragraph of a research paper, okay? To identify the research problem, you may ask yourself the following questions, and you're going to be, as you answer those questions, probably you're going to be identifying that research problem that any report or research report you're reading is trying to address. For example, there's a sentence like, a major problem is, there is it if you read that in a research report. There's an issue, concern, or controversy that the researcher wants to address. That is very important. That needs to be clear in the first 2 or 3 paragraphs of the report. If you read those reports and the answer of this second question is very clear, that means that the research problem is presented in a very good manner. What real-world problem needs to be solved? Again, to be successful on presenting the research problem, the answer of these 3 questions need to be very clear when you read it, when you read the report. And hopefully you also can be that specific when you write your own reports. I like this chart because it kind of explains us how we are going to be presenting the information in that first chapter or the first draft that you're going to be working. Ideally, you go from general to be more specific. That's why we put this pyramid in this, like from the wider part in the top to the narrow part in the bottom. Okay, that's try to represent from the general to specific. The first thing that you're going to be presenting is the topic, and basically the topic answers to the question, what is the study about? For example, here, physical activity. So the topic is like the general theme that your research is about. Could be evaluations, could be learning a second language, could be, I don't know, didactic to teach mathematics, okay? So it's general. Then you present the research problem, and this answers this question. What problem needs to be addressed or solved? In the example, youth are engaging in low levels of physical activity, which may lead to obesity and adverse health outcomes. And finally, the idea is that you identify a purpose. What exactly are you going to be doing in your research? So what does a researcher intend to do? To study the physical activity opportunities occurring in the middle schools and the factors associated with these opportunities. So I like this, like I said before, because it kind of tells us how we're going to be presenting that information. And your first report, the idea is that you develop all these 3 main components. Today, we are going to center the discussion in these first 2. And next class, we're going to be talking about how you present and you generate the research purpose and also research questions. Here is an example that I want you to take a minute to read it and answer these 3 questions to try to identify these 3 main components. What is the study topic? What research problem is identified that falls under this topic? What purpose for research is formulated from this problem? So I'm going to give you like 30 seconds, read it, and try to answer those 3 questions. Okay, so hopefully you read it and you may find the answers of these 3 questions. If you need more time, you can pause your video, take your time, read it, and now we're going to check the answers. So the first question, the research topic is bullying. So you see, the research topic is a general idea of what the study is about. And now we're going to be more specific. The problem is the serious issue of teacher bullying, larger problem and concern that authors argue that need to be studied. So teacher bullying. And then the purpose of the research is to explore teachers' understanding of what teacher bullying is about. You see, we go from this general idea to a very specific goal that the researchers want to address. Now, to develop this research problem, we are going to be working in these 5 main components that needs to be developed, each one in your draft. And I'm going to be providing in the next part of this video the specific details that you have to consider in order to include all the components that we expect that you develop in each part of the research problem. The first one is the topic. When we talk about the topic, we understand this as the broad subject matter that the researcher addressed in the study. Some examples are leadership, bullying, like we said, we saw an example, the world language education, drug use, family relationships. So the first thing that you have to identify is what is the topic? What is the general topic of your research? When the topic is written well, the first sentence of the research report should encourage you to continue reading. It's like what we understand like the hook of your text. And here are some strategies that you can use to present that research topic, like some statistical data. There's an example with some percentages about that presents the topic. Another strategy could be a provocative question. What is good fathering? And then you present information that supports or kind of provides some information about that. Another one is presenting a clear need for research about that topic. Student employment has long been a cause of concern for educators of American post-secondary institutions. Okay, so there's a concern there. Another one is to start with a powerful quote. Okay, usually we choose a quote from some very well-known author or institution. And the last one, that's very common also use, definition. Okay, so here are 5 examples of strategies that try to present in an effective manner the topic. You can use those or any other one that you may find interesting. The second one is to identify the research problem. Okay, like we said before, the research problem is the issue, concern, or controversy that needs to be solved. And here, in this part of your research problem, you have to develop that idea. For example, a major concern could be the one that is presented here. In a particular, the career development of African American adolescents have been a major concern in light of literature delineating numerous challenges that affect their personal, educational, and career development. And here we provide a quote, okay, that provides support of this concern that we are trying to present. Something that affects the life of many individuals. Again, we choose a quote from our research that kind of present us this problem that we're going to addressing in our proposal. Something that has serious consequences. So here it provides you another quote that kind of supports the identification of the main concern that we want to address in our research proposal. In this case, is the physical activities that usually is related with some chronic diseases that may have these students. Also, a problem could be something, an issue for practitioners. Okay, and here is another quote that kind of provide us an example of this type of research problem. Another one could be what we know about a specific topic. So the lack of knowledge of how something is working could be an issue that we may want to address. In this case, is something related with leadership. Now, it's very important, and hope you notice this, that the different type of research problem that they are presenting always is supported with other research. Okay, that's something that we expect to see in your presentation of your own research problem. It's not it doesn't only it's not only presented with some personal observation or something that I think. Okay, we need to provide some research-based evidence of that problem that we're presenting is something that had been identified before. And here's another one, a problem that arises from conflicting evidence in the literature. So it's based on what we are reading in different research, and we provide that information also. We identify that as a problem. Now, after we identify that main issue, concern, or controversy that our research problem is trying to address, then we have to continue presenting more evidence, okay? And we're going to understand that like the justification of the importance of the problem, okay? Here, you have to present evidence for the importance of the issue that are you going to be studying. Once you have located the problem, you have to find evidence to extend that the problem affects real people's lives, okay? And where are you going to find that? Well, evidence from the literature. That's why it's so important that you know how to access to all a database that we saw in the second class. And also anything that you can find in other sources, online, or maybe, I don't know, governmental reports or other type of information that you can use and use it as an evidence of your research problem. Also, another source of information that can provide you The justification of the research problem is the evidence that you can find from the workplace or personal experiences. Okay, that also is important. Okay, your personal observation, your own experiences also can contribute to provide the direction and the justification of the research problem. Then, and this is kind of extension of the justification, you identify the problem, you justify the problem, and then you present all the evidence and also the missing parts that your research is going to be trying to address. Okay, so a good quality report, the researcher is going to enumerate several deficiencies that exist in the literature or in practice to make a strong argument for the need of the study. So you present all this evidence, and when you research about that, probably you're going to identify a piece of information that is missing. And if you develop your study, it's going to contribute to fill that information. Here you can find a statement like that justify that there's a gap of knowledge that needs to be filled. Could be a statement that tell us that the past results, okay, needs to be replicated, and this is very common at a thesis, an undergraduate thesis, that we replicate some studies, and we want to see, for example, something that is made in other country, and we want to see if that information happened in the same way in our context. Could be also a statement that tells us that the past results needs to be extended. Okay, we want to go deeper in some observations that were previously reported in other study. And this is very common in qualitative type of study, that there is a statement that tells us that some voices are marginalized and people need to be heard. Okay, so we provide our research space to go and extend that information that we don't know. Okay, because that people haven't been heard. Also, a justification of the problem could be a statement that tells us that the practice needs to be improved. So we need to do some research to contribute to that improvement. And the last part of your research problem statement is going to be to identify the audience who will be benefit from the knowledge that your study is going to be generate. Okay, here you have to identify the individuals or groups that authors expect that will read and potentially benefit from the knowledge that your study is going to be providing. Now, I present you these 5 pieces of your research chapter. Okay, topic, and here's a general definition of what is the meaning of what have to be included in this part. So we have the topic. You have to clearly state the subject area of the study. And here's an example. The research problem. You have to clearly identify the issue, concern, or controversy that is related with the topic that need to be addressed. Third, the justification of the importance of the problem. And here you provide supporting evidence about the problems and importance from the literature or professional and personal experiences. Fourth, you identify and present the deficiencies in the knowledge about the problem that you identified. Here you have to provide information of something that is not known about the problem. And the last part of this part of the research is to identify the audiences that may be benefits with your reports. Okay. Here you identify researchers, practitioners, policymakers, or any other individuals who could use the missing knowledge and your research is going to be presenting. Okay. If you connect this with this example, you're going to see this little example about this. Also, I upload in the EVA platform some previous work examples that you can use as a reference for your own reports. Okay. Hopefully, when you check those samples, you can identify the different pieces of the development of the research problem. Finally, this is going to be the last part of the video. Here's the rubric that I'm going to be using to evaluate your work. And basically, if you see the rubric, it has these 5 components that I expect you to develop in your draft. Okay, so here's the topic, the presenting of the problem. You state the importance of the problem and you justify it. You identify the deficiencies in the knowledge of the problem. Okay, the audience that can benefit from the missing knowledge. And then we have these 2 references that also I'm going to be checking. That is basically the format that you're using in your draft. Okay, the passage clearly argues the study is warranted and the passage is well written. Okay, so it's more the formality of your work. But if you have any questions about what specific things I expect you to develop in each one of these components, here's an explanation, okay? And I'm going to upload this rubric as well in the EVA platform, okay? Here are the different components, and here are the indicators of higher quality and indicators that your work has a lower quality. So I'm going to be checking specific, and I'm not going to be going over the specific indicators. You download, review it, and it's very important that you understand these indicators. Previously, you submit your first draft, okay? So you know the expectation of what you have to include in your reports. So with that, we are done with this video. Hopefully you have the information you need to start working in your first draft. And I'm going to upload this presentation as well as a handout so you can review it in detail if you need. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in next class.